on in your questions, and maybe you'll see your question pop up here on the bottom of the screen. An important thing here, guys, make sure to put that word topic in the subject line. Put the word topic in the subject line, or else I'm not going to see your email. And as always, keep those emails to 90 words or less. If you don't have it down to 90 words or less, I'm not going to bother reading it because I wouldn't even be able to fit it on the screen even if I wanted to. So now, after we're done with those topics, like I said, we're doing the show live. I'm going to go to you guys live who are watching live right now, and I'm going to take your live thoughts and opinions. Now, if you're watching live, how do you get a live question on? It's simple. Wait till closer to the end of the show. I'll save some time near the end, and make sure you tweet to me at John Campea. Once again, just tweet to me at John Campea, and I'll get through just as many of your live tweets as I can, and maybe you'll see your tweet pop up here on the bottom of the screen. So, with all that out of the way, I put up a little video this morning. Maybe some of you guys saw it, called The 5 Reasons Warner Brothers Needs to Abandon the Current DCEU. And I stand by that. And, you know, it's funny because I had a whole bunch of people writing to me to say, but John, like, you like the DCEU movies. Yeah, I do. I like the DCEU movies. But here's the thing. As fans, we can't just say, well, I like it, therefore everything's fine. Hey, you know I like Justice League. I saw it multiple times in theaters. You know I love Man of Steel. It's in my top 10 comic book films of all time. I gave positive reviews to Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman and Batman vs. Superman. I like them all. But just because I like something doesn't mean I should close my eyes and stick my head in the sand about the facts. Facts are, Justice League is, instead of being the #1 all-time comic book movie opening, it was number 22. Fact is that we've seen a decline in opening weekend box office for every DCEU movie since Batman vs. Superman. Fact is, Justice League took almost a half cut from the amount of people that went out to go see Batman vs. Superman on opening weekend. Nearly only half of that many people went to go see Justice League. So it doesn't matter if I like them. That's irrelevant. I like them, great, but it's not working. The audience is abandoning the DCEU. The facts are right there. It's all in the numbers. The numbers don't lie. So I put that thing up, and I know a lot of people say, but John, you said you like the movies. I do like the movies. But that doesn't mean as a fan, just because we like something, that we should stick our heads in the sand and ignore all the other facts. So anyway, if you guys haven't had a chance to check out that video, go check out that video and let me know your thoughts on it. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get on with the first question of the day. And the first question today comes to us from Patreon supporter Brad Stowell. Thanks for being a Patreon supporter, Brad. Hi, John. CW's 2-night crossover event, Crisis on Earth X, has come and gone, and I absolutely loved it. Thought it was so much better than last year's. The villains were much better than those awful CGI Dominators, and it was great seeing Wells back in that yellow suit. It felt like a 4-hour superhero movie. What are your thoughts? And yeah, I was actually a little bit late to watching Crisis on Earth X. Now, I'll be honest with you, I haven't, jumped over the moon about the CW crossover things. I mean, they're cool that they do them, and I like that they do them. And I've liked a couple of them, but, I haven't jumped over the moon about them. Gotta say, I really liked it. I really liked Crisis on Earth X. Now, look, this is a great example of something that works on television that would never work on the big screen. Like, you take that Crisis on Earth X thing as it is, and you put it in a movie theater, and you say it's a full feature film, people would have hated it. I mean, but there's a difference between what we come to expect in our television shows, especially in the CW DC television shows, and what we come to expect in a motion picture. And I really enjoyed the Crisis on Earth X. I like that they actually did a lot of character development with a lot of the characters. I like that there was some significant things that happened. A major character dies, which I never thought they would do in one of these crossover events. Like, I thought if you'd ever going to have a major character die, you'd have them die on their show. But they had a significant major, one of my favorite characters actually, they had a significant character die, and that was impressive. Major events happen in that we see Barry and Iris get married, and we see Felicity and Oliver get married. So some major events. Good person. The one-night stand, though, between Supergirl's sister and White Canary, Sarah, that was hilarious. Not just because they had a one-night stand, but then throughout the rest of the 4 episodes, the two girls, like the awkward interactive banter they had, I thought that was really fun and clever. And it's, look, whenever you need an easy villain to go to Nazis. And that's what they did. They went to the Nazis. But to have this Elseworld, this Earth X, where Oliver Queen is actually the Fuhrer, and you have Supergirl as his wife, and they've got the SS instead of the one S on her chest. She's got the SS on her chest. Having Eobard Thawne come back as Reverse Flash, and it's him. They did a lot of really cool, fun little things, and I was happy with it. I was really happy with it. And I also really like the fact that, I've always said this. To me, since you can't have Batman in the CW, Arrow needs to be your Batman character. And that's why, like, when you got into season 3 and stuff like that, as they were getting the more jovial Ollie, I didn't really like that because he is the stand-in, he is the substitute Batman for the CW universe. So I want him to act a little bit more like Batman, to be honest with you. And maybe I'm wrong to feel that way. Maybe I'm wrong, but that is the way I feel. And I love the fact that even though he's the non-superpowered guy, he's the man. Oliver should be the man in this CW universe. And even though he's not the one with superpowers, he should be the one that everybody's afraid of. And I really like the way that CW handles that. Like especially with the Flash and the Flash's crew, like whenever they mention Oliver, everybody's like, don't piss off Oliver. And I love the fact that this was great to me because this reminded me a lot of Batman. There's this scene in Crisis on Earth X where the evil Supergirl shows up. And he pulls out a kryptonite arrow and shoots her. And the real Supergirl looks at him and goes, "What the hell are you doing with that kryptonite arrow?" And he's like, "In case an evil one of you ever showed up." And I loved that. I thought that was great because that is something Batman would do, right? That's something Batman would be prepared for. So I really dug the fact that they did that. I felt like all the characters got a good shake of airtime. It felt like they still had their focus on their main big three, which is, of course, Oliver and Barry and Supergirl. And you know what? I liked it. Look, I'm not jumping over the moon about the CW shows these days. Everybody knows that. Like even Flash, which I love Flash. This season, I haven't been thrilled with it. But I gotta say, Crisis on Earth X, it really worked for me. If you hadn't had a chance to check it out yet, I'd suggest go check it out. It's 4 episodes. Well worth the time. It's a lot of fun. Go enjoy it. I think you'll have a good time. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from David Rainey. And David Rainey writes, "Hey John, longtime fan. Thank you so much, David. Loving the new content. I was reading a Forbes article on Disney attracting Wall Street attention, and buried in the article is a statement that their upcoming streaming service will be priced, quote unquote, substantially below Netflix. What are your thoughts?" Well, yeah, we've talked a lot lately about this game changer that's coming. That's Disney launching its own streaming service to compete not just with Netflix, but Netflix, Hulu, Google Play, Crackle, Amazon Prime, all that kind of stuff. So we see that Disney's got their own streaming service coming. We've been talking about that quite a bit. One of the things that we haven't mentioned here is that they did mention that it was going to be priced lower than Netflix. But the reason I don't make a big deal out of that, personally, is okay, yeah, they say in the quote, it's going to be priced substantially less than Netflix. Well, how much? It's not like Netflix costs us $140 a month, and you're going to come in and charge us $30 a month. Okay, that's substantial. Netflix, I can't remember exactly. What am I paying for Netflix right now? Like $10, $11, $12 most? I honestly, I lost count of how much I'm actually paying for Netflix, but it's like in the $10 range. So you come out and say, we're going to be priced substantially less than Netflix. Well, Netflix only costs $10. I mean, so how much substantially less? Free? You're going to make it free? Fine. Then you can say substantially less. No, we're only going to charge $7 for ours. Okay, whoop-de-doo. You're charging $3 less a month. Okay, great. Yay! I mean, so I haven't really cared all that much. Essentially, $7 and $10 a month is the same, essentially, to me. So that's why when that comment first came out about Disney reps saying that their streaming service was going to be a lot less than Netflix, I didn't pay any attention because it's not like Netflix charges $50 a month. If they did, you'd have my attention. But they charge like $10 a month or 11 or whatever it is. And a bunch of you guys are putting some different prices. As Amaz HD says, $10 unless you're paying for 4K streaming version. Well, okay, yeah, there you go. So it's basically $10 a month. So really, how much are you going to save me? You're going to save me $30 a month? Well, they're only charging me 10, so you can't save me $30 a month. So look, it's going to be priced competitively with the other services. That's all you got to say. This whole substantially cheaper you can't be substantially cheaper when the other guy is only charging $10. Anyway, that's just my thought on it. Maybe you have a different thought on that. Jump into the comment section below and let me know what you think. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic today comes to us from Edgar Magana, who writes, "Hey John, love the show. Thank you so much, Edgar. I was wondering, what was going on with the Scarface remake? Last I heard, they booted David Ayer for making the script too dark. Would love to hear your thoughts." Well, yeah, I mean, this is an ongoing drama, actually, this whole thing about Scarface. First of all, I believe it was in June when it was announced that David Ayer was no longer attached to Scarface. There were two separate reports, both claiming to be exclusive. One was from Variety, one was from The Hollywood Reporter. If I'm remembering it right, I believe The Hollywood Reporter, I might have these mixed up, but one of them claimed that David Ayer was stepping away because of scheduling issues because he's got that Netflix movie Bright coming up. Now remember, this is back in June. And, you know, the studio wanted to get moving now on Scarface, and so they parted ways for schedule. The other trade claimed that the reason he left was because Universal thought that David Ayer's take on Scarface was too dark. Now, that got a lot of us, when that news first came out, that got a lot of us laughing. It's like, it's Scarface. Like, how, you were not expecting dark? It's Scarface. So then it's like, well, what the hell did David Ayer have in that script? Like, what was he having, like little children beating baby seals to death with like Lucille kind of baseball bats with barbed wire and then eating their flesh? Like, is that what they were doing? Like, how dark is too dark for Scarface? I'm not sure. But one of the interesting things is that ever since that happened, nothing has happened with this movie. Like, it's, as far as I know, no new director. It's still listed as being in development. So it's not even in pre-production at this point, let alone in production, let alone shooting. So as far as I know, there's been absolutely no movement on this project ever since David Ayer left. Now, maybe there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that nobody's reported on. That's totally possible. But at face value right now, it looks like there's been like zero movement on this Scarface movie, which is unfortunate because I believe Diego Luna, I believe he is attached to play the lead character in this one. And I think he'd play a fascinating character there. I think he would do a great job in the lead role. So I don't know. Let's see what pans out. I'm sure they're still going to move ahead with it. But as of right now, there's been nothing to talk about. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Connor Griffiths. And Connor Griffiths writes, "Hi, John. Connor from the UK here. I watch your show every day, so keep up the great work." Thank you so much, Connor. Now to my question. In an interview with Rolling Stone, Daisy Ridley said that she would not reprise the role of Ray after episode 9. Should we now assume that Ray is destined to die in this trilogy, or do you think Disney will leave her story open-ended? If you have other ideas, what are your thoughts? Thanks. Well, I mean, okay, so what he's talking about here is that, yes, there was a recent interview with Daisy Ridley where she basically said, like, look, she didn't say this, "I'm not doing episode 10. She didn't flat out say that. She said, "Oh, no, like, I'm signed on for 3. That's what I'm going to do. Maybe 20 years from now, maybe I'll come back and do another one, blah, 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 blah." Okay, so it wasn't really definitive, but the implication was clear. She was implying that she's done after Star Wars Episode 9. The interesting thing about that is this. Just 3 weeks ago, Kathleen Kennedy did an interview where Kathleen Kennedy was talking about the future of Star Wars. And Kathleen Kennedy said, "We're already making plans for like the next 10 movies that will involve our new characters, Poe, Finn, and Rey, and BB-8 and things like that." So here we have 3 weeks ago, Kathleen Kennedy saying, "We've already got plans for the next 10 movies. We're making plans with our characters, Rey, Poe, Finn." And she mentioned Rey. That Rey was a part of their plans for their upcoming next 10 years worth of films, or the next 10 films, whatever, however you want to call that. So here you have, on one day, Kathleen Kennedy saying, "We're going to make more movies with Rey." And then we fast forward to an interview 3 weeks later with Daisy Ridley saying, "I'm done after 9. Okay, so let's play around in that sandbox a little bit. There are a couple of possibilities. Possibility number one, Daisy Ridley, and I think this is probably the most likely scenario. Daisy Ridley is just playing coy a little bit. Daisy Ridley is just kind of, maybe she's trying to avoid speculation and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do more movies. Oh, so then what does that mean about Rey in the upcoming movies? Like, you know, I think she's just either playing coy or something along those lines. Because clearly Kathleen Kennedy wouldn't have come out and said, we're making plans for more movies with Rey. She wouldn't say that and not know and have no idea that her star, her person who plays Rey, is telling the press that I'm not going to play Rey anymore after episode 9. That doesn't make any sense unless there's real broken communication over there at Lucasfilm. And while there is a lot of broken communication between Lucasfilm and their new directors, which is well documented, I don't think there's that kind of communication breakdown there. The other possibility is that Daisy Ridley is maybe playing a little bit hardball. That, hey, currently she has a 3-film contract, and that 3-film contract is after episode 9, and maybe she's playing a little hardball moving forward. That's possible. I mean, that's totally a possibility that she could be doing that. But Daisy Ridley doesn't strike me as the kind of ungrateful jerk that would do that. Look, we all admit this. The only reason we know the name Daisy Ridley is because Lucasfilm let her be Rey in Star Wars. She never would have been in Murder on the Orient Express. She never would have been in any of the other upcoming movies she's got. She never would have got any of those opportunities if it wasn't for Star Wars. So is it possible she's just kind of playing hardball with Lucasfilm to get a better deal for episodes 10, 11, 12, or whatever comes later? Possible, but she doesn't strike me as that kind of ungrateful jerk. And you'd have to be an ungrateful jerk to be in her position and then pull something like that. And I don't think she's that type of person. I mean, look, I don't know Daisy Ridley personally, obviously, but everything that I've seen from her, she's a sweet, grounded, well-rounded person. I haven't seen anything that would lead me to believe that she's that kind of ungrateful jerk. So I have a feeling we are going to see Rey and Daisy Ridley playing Rey after Star Wars Episode 9. I just kind of think she's being coy right now. Or maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe I'm dead wrong. Who knows? All right, guys. Hey, look. In the live chat, somebody's put in a super chat in the live chat, and the super chat was put in by CF Frank. And CF Frank wrote in the live chat, while I respect that film is subjective, philosophy, do you think it's causing us to overvalue personal taste / enjoyment and lose sight of what's objectively known to make films more human, functional, and impactful? Well, see, Frank, here's the thing. I believe if you truly understand that all film is subjective, you're saying that causes people to overvalue personal taste. I'm saying if you truly understand the subjectivity of film, it takes the emphasis off your own personal taste to understand that there's a wider audience and their opinions are going to differ from yours. See, I think if you really understand, and if the audience truly understand that film is subjective, then that would probably lessen people putting more importance on their own personal taste to understand that other people have different opinions. So I believe it actually works the opposite from the way you're suggesting it. Also, you're saying there are things that make films more objectively making it more human, functional, impactful. Okay, wait a minute though. Here's the thing. What makes it more human? That's a subjective question. You say, make the film more human. Okay, great. But how do you make it more human? What can you do in your film that would ultimately lead it to being more human? That's a subjective thing. Make it more impactful. I get where you're coming from and I agree. But what makes it impactful will be up to a subjective taste. Look, I've always say this and I stand by it. Every studio tries to make the best movie they can with whatever resources they have at their disposal. They try. But making a good movie, making a movie, even if you're trying for it to be more human, functional, and impactful, even if they're trying, they don't always succeed. Because what works for the audience may not work, may not be in tune with what they had in their head. And what works for one part of the audience may not work for the other part of the audience. So it's kind of like saying, C. Frank, that, hey, look, I understand film's subjective, but just make it objectively good. But what do you do to make it objectively good? There's no, unless something could be measured. I always say this, and this is the truth. I don't have the measuring tape here. Let's say that this tech box was a measuring tape. Unless you can objectively, quantifiably, empirically measure something, then it's subjective. If you can't put a definitive measurement on it to call it a fact, then it's subjective. And I totally appreciate what you're saying about how, hey, there's a danger of it putting too much emphasis on personal taste. Whereas again, I'm suggesting that if you really do understand the subjectivity of film, it puts a greater emphasis for your understanding on other people's tastes rather than just your own. But that's just my thought. Thank you so much for it. It's a great point to bring up, and it's a great topic to bring up. Thanks for putting that in there, man. All right, guys. We move on now to the final email question of the day, and then we're going to get ready to go over to your guys' live questions for you guys who are watching live. And this one's a doozy. This one comes to us from Keith Thomas, who writes, John, I know you're always trying to see the positive side of Warner Brothers, and you often say they're not stupid, these are smart people, but this article from The Wrap proposes that they are still just people. And the ultimate failing of Justice League is a combination of indifference, incompetence, and good old-fashioned self-interest. All right, well, thanks a lot for the question, man. And, the thing that Keith is bringing up and what Keith is talking about here is this article in The Wrap that is really quite eye-opening. And to be honest, there's a lot of stuff in this report that everybody already knew. But there's a couple of things in there that people maybe didn't know. For instance, one of the things in The Wrap talked about was that there was a lot of WB executives that wanted to fire Zack Snyder before Justice League started. But the problem was, by the time, Batman versus Superman didn't, succeed the way they wanted it to succeed, they were just weeks away from starting shooting on Justice League. It was too late. Everybody in the industry knows that. Everybody knew that's the truth. That's the fact. There's a lot of people in Warner Brothers who wanted to fire Zack Snyder, but they just decided ultimately it would cost too much. It would cause too much upheaval. We'll never meet our release dates if we change the director now, so they just stuck with them. There's also stuff in this article in The Wrap that Keith is referring to that everybody knew, which is, number one, even while Justice League was being shot, Warner Brothers executives couldn't agree amongst themselves as to which direction the movie should go. Some wanted to keep going the way, the thing was going. A lot of people in WB executives wanted to take it away and start to change direction. So that fight was still going on even while the movie was shooting. And so Zack Snyder was still on the film, and he was getting more and more pressure to do things more and more Joss Whedon's way, because Joss Whedon was now on board. That, then the tragedy happened with Zack, but Zack was already under a tremendous amount of pressure when that happened, before that horrible tragedy struck his family. So that was in there. The part that gets my attention is this. This is the main part of this story that has me and a lot of people kind of going, what's going on here? As most of you know, AT&T is going to be merging in with Warner Brothers. At least that's that's what it looks like. And AT&T has taken over Warner Brothers. That happens in 2018. Their source at The Wrap, who's a Warner Brothers insider at WB, claims that the main reason, because you guys remember, I've been talking about this for months. I said a few months ago, remember I told you guys, hey guys, look, I've been told by reliable sources that there is some discussion in Warner Brothers about pushing off Justice League into 2018 to give themselves more time. Those things actually happened. But according to this report, the reason they did not move it in 2018, because remember, by the time Joss Whedon took over the director's chair, he had less than 6 months to get that movie ready, to do all the changes that they wanted, all the reshooting, all the new visual effects, all that kind of stuff. Less than 6 months. And how hard have I been moaning and whining and complaining that, God, you should have pushed this movie into 2018 to give yourselves more time, all right? I'm not the only one. A lot of you guys have been saying the exact same thing. Well, here's where the big question mark comes in here. And this is where the controversy is going to surround. According to this WB insider that The Wrap has, their insider says that the reason Kevin Tsujihara, who's in the picture with Ben Affleck here, and I've been a fan for the last 6-7 years of Tsujihara. I think he's a smart dude. I think he's done, not so much with their WB, with the DC stuff, but Warner Brothers has done some really good things over the last number of years, aside from the DC stuff. But according to this insider, the main reason that Tsujihara would not let Justice League get bumped into 2018, which I think everybody agrees would have helped Justice League a lot, to give them more time to make the film they wanted to make, all that kind of stuff, to market it better, all that. Just pushing it to 2018 would have done a lot of good. Anyway, the report claims that the only reason Tsujihara would not let it get pushed into 2018 is because if it comes out in 2017, its box office results goes towards his personal bonuses that he gets from Warner Brothers. And if he allowed it to be pushed into 2018, after the merger happens, all that kind of stuff, he wasn't even sure. Nobody's really sure who's still going to have their jobs or who's still going to be there once that merger happens. To simplify it, what this source is claiming, and by the way, I have no idea if this is true or not. I'm just telling you what the report claimed, okay? I don't know that this is true. I hope it's not true. I desperately hope it's not true. But the bottom line is that this report claims that Tsujihara said, you know what? I don't make any money for myself if this movie gets pushed into 2018. Fuck it. I don't care if this movie is too rushed and is terrible now. Release it in 2017 so I can get my bonus. That's what this report is claiming. That's what the report is claiming, that Tsujihara and one or two other top executives at Warner Brothers was their rationale for making and forcing Justice League to keep that release date instead of pushing it in 2018, like we all think would have been a better idea, because he would have risked some extra bonus money for himself personally if it got pushed into 2018 instead of just releasing it in 2017. Again, I cannot emphasize enough that we do not know that this is a fact, okay? Let's make that the underlying assumption and understanding for everything that we're saying here is we don't know that this is fact. But if, huge universal size if, okay? Let's take this huge, big if. If that claim is true, if somebody in the position of a Kevin Tsujihara or other executives of Warner Brothers purposefully undermined their own cinematic universe, if they purposefully sabotaged their own movie franchise for their own personal benefit instead of looking out for the best interests of the company as a whole, which is what their responsibility is, to look out for the best interests of the company as a whole, if they purposefully undermine their own movie and undermine their own cinematic universe for personal gain, I don't know if there are criminal things to be done here, but they instantly got to go. They got to be fired. I don't care if I've liked them up to this point. If this is true, and we do not know if it's true, but if Warner Brothers conducts some kind of internal investigation into this and finds out that was a motivating factor for Tsujihara not to do what was best for the company, which is move Justice League into 2018, give Joss Whedon more time to actually do all these changes you wanted him to do, and ultimately make the fans happier. No. Force it to stay where it is so I can collect a bonus check for me? If that happened, if that's the truth, and if that's what comes out, Warner Brothers needs to do more than just a little bit of a shakeup, okay? It's time for rebuilding. In sports terminology, when a team is really bad and they don't have, a bright future ahead of them, instead of just keep going on and make one or two trades and add one or two new players, no. Teams go into what they called a rebuilding phase. Great teams do this because it builds champions. When they start to struggle, they go into a rebuilding phase where it's like, you know what? Get rid of everybody, fire the GM, fire the coach, trade away our best players, get some draft picks, let's build for the future and build on a solid foundation. And then they ultimately, eventually, they win championships. If this is what's happening with Warner Brothers, and this type of corruption is in Warner Brothers, again, I don't care if I'm repeating it 1,000 times, it's important. We don't know this is the case, so this is a huge if. But if that's true, and that type of corruption is in Warner Brothers, where they're undermining their own cinematic universe for a couple of guys to line their pockets with a few extra bucks, then Warner Brothers can't just get rid of one guy. Warner Brothers needs to clean house. The board has to step in and say, you're all gone. Not just the CEO, but all you underlings who worked for him before. Don't tell me you didn't know what was going on. You're all gone. And get rid of all of them. And the board of Warner Brothers needs to start from scratch, rebuild this thing, and put in better leadership. Because if they have that type of a culture of corruption over there, that they're undermining their own artistic endeavors just so they can personally make a few extra bucks, I mean, where do you go from there? What do you do with that? And here's the part that really upsets me the most, okay? Now, I'm somebody, I don't care what anybody else says or thinks. Screw you. I'm a DC fan. I've been a fan. I'm one of the only film guys out there who's given positive reviews to all the DC films. I stand by it, but at the same time, I don't stick my head in the sand and go, I don't see any problems. I don't ignore the problems. I acknowledge the problems. I talk about the problems. As a result of that, there are some hardcore, what I call the zombie corporate slave DC fanboys, who give me a hard time. And there are hardcore zombie corporate slave Marvel fanboys who give me a hard time too. I don't care, and human sucks. Anyway. But here's the thing that really upsets me. Even these zombie corporate slaves, whatever, these DC hardcore fanboys who give me a hard time, guess what? They love your stuff. They have supported your stuff. And maybe I don't like the way corporate zombie slaves go about expressing their love for that kind of stuff, and I think they're actually kind of toxic in many ways. But the fact of the matter is, you've got a whole core of people out there who have supported you, endorsed you, fought for you, and behind the scenes, your upper leadership is undermining their product just so they can line their own bucks while screwing over these other guys, these fans who have been sitting there and supporting you, fighting for you, arguing for you, and you're screwing them? That's already, look, as fans, we can all have different opinions and argue and butt heads and come at it from different points of view. That's great. But we're all fans. And when you screw one group of fans, you're screwing all the fans. And you're screwing all of us. Again, if it is true, and we don't know that it's true. For all we know, maybe this WB insider that they have over there that the rap is talking to, maybe he's just some disgruntled guy at Warner Brothers who's mad at Kevin Tsujihara because he wants Kevin Tsujihara's job and they gave it to him instead. I don't know. Like, for all we're saying, I'm just saying, if it's true, it's fucking nonsense if it's true. Anyway, I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of things that you're going to want to say about this as well when we get into the live Twitter part here. We're going to do that now in just a second. But before we get to the live tweets, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about this whole WB situation because I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to bring it up. It's time for my little commercial break where I do my daily shameless plug of my Patreon campaign, which is the thing that keeps the lights on around here. So we'll be back in just 1 minute with your live Twitter questions after this quick little shameless plug. We'll be right back. For those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you guys know that I made the decision recently to leave the corporate overlords. I no longer wanted to work for corporations. I wanted to be an independent content creator. And the only way I've been able to do that is by the support of my Patreon supporters. So what I would like to do is to ask you guys who watch my shows, who spend any amount of time with me every single month, to consider going over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what exactly does it mean to be a Patreon supporter of mine? What does being a Patreon supporter do for helping to make sure that shows like this one and all the other shows I do here on my channel can actually be produced? And on top of that, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? And maybe if you guys can check that out, if you decide you want to be one of my Patreon supporters, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy that you guys have decided to be here today and be a fellow movie fan and join us in the conversation. So go and check out the website, see if you want to become a Patreon supporter. And now let's get back. All right, guys, and we are back. Thank you so much, guys, especially a special thank you to all of you guys who are already Patreon supporters of mine. It's no joke when I say you're the only reason I'm able to dedicate myself full-time to doing these shows and make these shows possible. You guys are the ones who make the show possible, so thank you so much for that. All right, guys, I said it's time for us to go to Twitter, and again, if you guys are watching live, and there's like 2,500 of you watching live right now, if you want to get a comment or an opinion or a question, simply tweet. Keep your tweets as short as possible, okay? Do me that favor. Keep it as short as possible, but tweet to me at John Campea. So let me open up my Twitter stream right now, get this open in front of me, and we will get this whole ball rolling, and we're going to start off with this one. This one comes to us from Ann Collegon, who writes, John, is film school worth it for an aspiring filmmaker? Absolutely, I think it is. Actually, if you want to hear about, the value of film school, like film school is not the only avenue, but if you want to hear about the value of film school, look up some of the stuff that Kevin Smith has talked about. He's got some really good insights as a part of that. All right, next tweet comes to us from Dominic Schuma, who writes, John, did Marvel confirm Thanos is also the villain of Avengers 4? 3 and 4 come out only a year apart. You know what? I want to say yes. I want to say yes, but I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know if that's a fact. Like, I can't think Off the top of my head, I can't, like, in my head, I'm thinking, yes, Thanos is the villain of Part 4, but I'm trying to think of a specific Marvel press release definitively saying that, and I can't remember. Do me a favor, guys, in the chat board. Any of you guys who are in the chat board right now, if you know of that as a fact, do me a favor, put in a link there so other people can find that. That would be great. Let's see. I've got another super chat, and this super chat came into the live chat board from Tank Mover, and Tank Mover write, will Avengers 4 be the last big team-up movie in the MCU? I don't think so. I think it'll be the last big team-up movie for 2 or 3 years, but I have got to assume that there will be more big Marvel team-ups after that because it just makes them far too much money. Far too much money. All right, let's move on to the next live tweet. And this next live tweet comes to us from Petrovich Jeremy, who writes, John, can the DCEU reboot and keep any current actors? Like, okay, that is a question I've been getting a lot. Now, I have my own personal opinion about what you need to do when you reboot. If you reboot, then you reboot. If you're starting over, then starting over. And look, everybody knows the love and affection I have for Ben Affleck as Batman. Everybody knows the love and affection I have for Henry Cavill as Superman. I love these guys. I think Jason Momoa did a great job as Aquaman. I think Ezra Miller did a great job as Flash. I think Ray Fisher did a really nice job as Cyborg. But all that aside, if you hard reboot, I should say, because there's ways to soft reboot, I guess. You can adopt the Fox philosophy of continuity schmontinuity. That's what Fox does, and it works for them. Guess you could do that. But if you're going to actually start the universe over, then start over. There are lots of great actors out there. There are lots of great, wonderful, fantastic actors who, for all we know, could be a better Batman than Ben, could be a better Superman than Henry, could be a better Flash than Ezra. You just don't know. So my philosophy is, if you're going to reboot, then you reboot. But then again, there are other options. Soft rebooting, adopt the Fox continuity schmontinuity kind of theory and philosophy. That's all possible too. Let's not discount that. It's certainly possible. Okay, let's see. This one comes to us from Greg is Batman, writes, John, do you watch foreign films as well? Which is your favorite? Well, when people ask me about my favorites, there's a couple. One is a little bit of a cheat, and the reason it's a little bit of a cheat is because it opened in North America, but that's Roberto Benigni's Life is Beautiful, the Italian film. One of the best movies ever made. I mean, it's in my top 20. One of the best films ever made. Roberto Benigni's Life is Beautiful. I defy you to watch that and not cry at the end. I mean, I've cried in like 4 films in my life, maybe 5. That's one of them. That is one of them. Another one, my favorite cop film of all time. Foreign or domestic, my favorite cop film of all time is it's an Asian film called Infernal Affairs, which is what Martin Scorsese based his movie The Departed. The Departed is actually a remake of Infernal Affairs, just set in Boston. But Infernal Affairs is there, and Amelie. Amelie, gorgeous, beautiful, breathtaking, the whole 9 yards. I mean, everything. So those are some of them. Of course, you got some action films like The Raid. There's a bunch of them, but there are some really, really great foreign films, absolutely. I'm glad that there's a category for it at the Academy Awards, actually. All right, let's move on. This next one comes to us from George B. Taz 0420, who writes, Hey, John, if and when the DCEU reboots, what should be the next move after Aquaman, and should they do a total recast? Thanks. Well, look, okay. There are different ways that they could do it. So the way I'm going to suggest is but one way. Is really just one way. Number one, they have to release Aquaman because Aquaman's already shot. They've already invested $100+ million in that film. You got to release Aquaman. After that, you just start again. Look, Spider-Man didn't need a setup movie to reboot. They just said, oh, you know what? After Spider-Man 3, we're just going to reboot it. And they just rebooted. They didn't have to have a setup movie. They didn't need a Crisis on Infinite Earths / Flashpoint / whatever you want to call it to set up a new Spider-Man. No, they just stopped and said, okay, now we're going to start again. They did that twice. And I think that's kind of the best way to do it. Wait 1 year after Aquaman and start with Matt Reeves' brand new Batman. And you make that Batman the cornerstone of your brand new cinematic universe. You start with Batman, then you roll out a Superman movie, you roll out a Wonder Woman movie, you roll out a Green Lantern movie, then you do a new a new Justice League. You do a new Justice League after that. Justice League Revamped. That's a stupid title, but you see what I'm saying. There are a bunch of people out there, and I get where you're coming from. Oh, use Flashpoint, but who's going to go watch Flashpoint? If only $94 million worth of people came out to see Justice League, how many people do you think are going to go watch Flashpoint? A lot less. So you don't waste hundreds of millions of dollars. This is just my personal theory. Your theory might be better than mine. I mean, that's totally possible. My theory, though, is that you don't waste hundreds of millions of dollars just so you can have a setup movie for your reboot. Just reboot. Just reboot it. And you got a great director like Matt Reeves involved. Yeah, I still wish Ben Affleck was directing it, but whatever, he's not. I've gotten over it. Matt Reeves is a great director. Start with his Batman movie and you make that the starting point of a brand new DC cinematic universe. And go. And Matt Reeves most likely will deliver a solid, great movie that critics and fans love, because critics love his films. So you do that, and now you've got this solid anchor point to start a brand new DCU from. How great would that be? Imagine the possibilities with that. Then whoever they got as Batman, great, and wherever they go from there. But that's how I would do it, and I hope that's one of the options that Warner Brothers is looking at right now. Let's see. This next one comes to us from Fire and Venom 100 says, John, wouldn't Tom Hardy be a better choice for the lead role in Scarface instead of Diego Luna? I don't think so. I think Tom Hardy overall is the better actor. But I think it's close. Diego Luna is a really kind of sick, talented actor. So I do think Tom Hardy is a slightly better actor. But I think Diego Luna probably fits the role a little bit more. So if I was the exec there, and thank God I'm not the exec, but if I was the exec there and I had a choice between Tom Hardy or Diego Luna to be the lead, I'm probably going Diego Luna. Just my thought. All right, next one. Comes to us from Trevor Valentino, writes, John, is there any characters you wish Marvel to introduce in the MCU for the next 20 film schedule? I mean, I don't know, whatever. They've got so many characters. All of them would be great, so I'm kind of okay with whoever they decide to bring in. All we do know is that Nova won't be in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. James Gunn did let us know that. I mean, Nova's a great character, so I'm sure we're going to see him at some point. Let's see. Brummy Balehead writes, John, what do you think is the best ever Best Picture Oscar winner? I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I mean, it's hard to argue against The Godfather Part 2. You know what? Godfather Part 2, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. There are some really damn good ones, but those are a couple of the films that would be in my discussion there. It's still unbelievable for me to imagine that Shawshank Redemption did not win Best Picture that year. All due respect to Forrest Gump. I like Forrest Gump. But you look on any all-time best lists, 99 times out of 100, Shawshank Redemption is ranking higher on those lists than Forrest Gump. And I really enjoy Forrest Gump. And somewhere my wife is getting really angry at me because she worships Tom Hanks. And now she's laughing. So, but to me, the very notion that Shawshank Redemption, one of the greatest films ever made, is not a Best Picture winner. It's really kind of awkward. Okay, let's just take a couple more here. This one comes to us from Dingo Captain, writes, John, Matt Reeves starting Batverse, your thoughts? Well, it's kind of fun. I'm sure you tweeted that before I said what I already said, but yeah, I've already kind of given my thoughts on that. Let's see. John Campea, what trailers, if any, will we see during the Super Bowl? Oh God, I don't know. I can't remember when the Super Bowl is. I don't know what's happening next week. So ask me that question as we get a little bit closer to the Super Bowl. All right, next one. Doc Samson 4 writes, John, news just in that Infinity War trailer broke the all-time view count, 230 million views in 24 hours. Not surprised, not surprised. Now, at the same time, even when Star Wars breaks the record and all that kind of stuff, look, I tell people this, don't get too excited about trailer numbers breaking records. Okay, I'll talk about them. Yeah, I mean, it's worth talking about. Absolutely, all that kind of stuff. But remember, just last year, for a while, you know what trailer held the record? The 50 Shades trailer held the record. And that didn't automatically translate into an $800 million box office, right? So don't be too quick to jump on saying, this movie set the record, this trailer set the record for most views, therefore that means the box office is going to be this. We've already seen that there are not direct correlations. We've already seen that. So don't get too terribly excited about that, but it is a damn good trailer. It's a damn good trailer. Let's see. This next one comes to us from RG Film Studios, writes, John, any tips on starting a podcast? You know what? I did a 2-hour video on getting started in doing your YouTube channel, podcast, or blog. jump on YouTube, just search John Campea Getting Started. And the very first video that comes up will be like a 2-hour video of me talking about how to get started and all this kind of stuff. I did it like 3 or 4 years ago, back when I was still at AMC, but all the principles in there still apply today. Maybe I'll redo it at some point just to update it a bit. But for now, if you want some tips on getting started, I did an entire 2-hour video. Go and check that out, and then leave a comment and let me know what you thought about it. Tell me if you found it helpful or not. Okay, guys, last question of the day, and we're going to go with Ethan Canistra, who writes, "Hey, John, where does Lego Batman fall on your list of superhero movies this year? I don't really count it as a superhero film. It's an animated genre. It's a spoof comedy. I loved Lego Batman. I really did. If I was going to include it on my lists, okay, for argument's sake, I don't count it on my list, but if I were, for argument's sake, number 1 would still be Logan by a mile. Logan's the best comic book film of the year, no questions asked. Number 2 would probably still be Spider-Man Homecoming. Number 3 would be Thor Ragnarok. Number 4 would be Wonder Woman. Number 5 would be Lego Batman. And number 6 would be Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So that would be the way I would rank them if I was including the Lego Batman movie in that list. I really did enjoy the Lego Batman movie. I thought it was great. Let's see. Anyway, guys, yes, that'll do it for me. I'll wrap it up with that. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Listen, don't forget, if you're here, click on that subscribe button. We just passed 100,000 subscribers this week. Thank you so much to all of you guys for helping that happen. I didn't think that was going to happen for a long time, but you guys made it happen. Thank you so much. Do me a favor, click the thumbs up button, jump in the comment section and leave a thought. And remember, guys, this is important to me, okay? We are all film fans together. We're all film fans. So let's debate and argue and passionately disagree. That's one of the most fun things about being a film fan. But as we're doing it, let's make sure we remember that the person we're debating with, even though they have different opinions than us, we're all on the same side. They're a fellow film fan with us. Let's just treat each other that way as we move forward. Yeah, so that'll do it for me for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until the next time, bye-bye.